us. Apologize for the couple minute delay here. I will call this meeting to order at 6:08 p.m. at Harrison Primary Center, meeting of the South Bend Empowerment Zone Board. First item, I know Rosa is remote, but first item on the agenda is our roll call. So I will do that. I'll just go in order from what I see on the screen and at the table here. Karima Fowler. Present in virtual.
Karima here.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Dwayne Wilson. Thank you, Dwayne. Rosa.
Here.
Leslie Wesley. Absent. Ryan.
Here.
Stephanie.
Here.
Present. Jeff.
Here.
Present. Sonia. Well, and then myself, I'm present.
Dwayne is here now.
And Dwayne is here, he waved.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a quorum and we will proceed. First item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion about our agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second?
Second ball.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any amendments, changes? Hearing none, I will consider the question call. In favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll continue. Next up on our agenda is approval of the June 26, 2024 board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion about our meeting minutes.
I'll move for approval of the June 26th board minutes.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any conversation, amendments, changes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion passes. Minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is business services report. We've got Rhonda here to present those. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. I'm here to present our monthly financials of the zone. I'd like to start with our 501c3 statement of activity. This is our revenue for the month and our expenses for our 501c3 only. Moving on is our statement of financial position. Here you'll find our assets, liabilities. And moving on to our next slide. This is our monthly budget to actuals of our 501c3. Even though our school year ended, our fiscal year ended June 30 actually. So these are for historic purposes so we can mark the end of the school year. This budget to actual is on a cash basis, so you'll see that this goes to July 16. So overall, the zone 501c3 ended right on budget. But again, since we're past the June 30 date, that number is just creeping up a little bit there. But this will all be resolved in the audit in terms of timing. So the 501c3 ended right at budget. So our next report, if I can move on, is the monthly funds update. So these are all our funds in addition to the 501c3 funds. These are all the funds that are held with the district and spent by the zone. You'll see our expected revenue in the first column, updated revenue, and then what we actually expended, and our balance. So of note, this is very similar to the report we provided last month because we met so late in the month. It was essentially like a school year end month report that you got last board meeting because we met at the end of that month. So you'll see that we although some accounts have been overspent, overall the zone was under budget in all of our other funds. And what is different here is I broke out the education fund so you can kind of see that is the largest fund. You can see what was spent where in the education fund. Broken down from staffing to the zone operating funds to a contribution to shared services.
And question on that, if I could, Ms. Ross, can you, just for clarity purposes, as you said, as we wrapped up the most recent year here, roughly, am I correct, in roughly $7 million or so allocated from ESSER and SIG, those funds are not recurring going forward, correct?
Exactly. So even though we ended under budget in these funds, as you can see in the third column, our budget for the year was about 32 million. So next year with the loss of ESSER, Pride, SIG, we're looking at a 25 million budget for the zone. So even though there's a little bit left, we still have deep budget cuts for next year, next school year. Thank you, Ryan. If I may move on to the June personnel report. Being the time of the year and things are wrapping up, the hires will really start coming in July, but we have no hires to report that have been cleared for June. You will see those on the July. But we do have on the next slide a lot of departures. So this is kind of a summary of our departures. 75, and it's a mix of resignations, a reduction in force due to budget cuts, and also emergency permit holders that were non-renewed. So I provided this summary so you would have an understanding of these next few slides where you see all these names and these positions that are no longer with us. You will find the summary on the first personnel page. That concludes the personnel report and the finance report.
Any additional questions from board members surrounding Rhonda's report?
I do. In looking at the June departures, can you give us a little bit more detail? There certainly are a number of changes here. Of the number listed here, the 75 employees, how many of those individuals are going back to the district?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. Actually, the certified staff members, and all these staff members have been reviewed by the district. Certified staff members have been placed if they so desired or if they were still staying, wanted a job. Some did, in fact, were resigning or retiring, what have you. But certified staff were placed, or if they wanted to move on, they could. So the district is assisting in help finding placement the best they can. There's no guarantees for the non-certs, but they're doing the best they can.
Thank you. And I didn't have a chance to count up, but we do have a detailed list of the number of certified. So there's actually more certified staff than non-certified. So basically, those individuals who are certified are being vetted out on the corporation side.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on Rhonda's report? Seeing none, I'll move on to the next item on our agenda. So the next item on our agenda is the 24-25 school year planning. And the first item on that is Empowerment Zone and South Bend School Corporation relationship. I will read a proposed resolution for the board to discuss, and I'll read this. So bear with me for a second here as I read through this document, and then I'll entertain a motion related to, then we will have discussion, conversation, and we will have a public period portion to discuss that. The board can then discuss again, and then we will take a motion on said proposal. Resolution concluding the South Bend Empowerment Zone on July 16, 2026, whereas in April 2019, the South Bend Community School Corporation, SBCSC, and the South Bend Empowerment Zone Incorporated, the zone, entered into agreement, the 2019 agreement, to give effect to the February 2019 letter of intent entered into between SBCSC and the Indiana State Board of Education. Whereas pursuant to the 2019 agreement, the parties agreed to a plan of action to ensure academic interventions and educational opportunity and achievement for students who attend Lamar Middle School, Coquillard Elementary School, Harrison Elementary School, Warren Elementary School, and Wilson Elementary School, the zone schools, through the creation of a transformation zone authorized under Indiana law. Whereas pursuant to the 2019 agreement, SBCSC selected and appointed the zone to have full managerial and operational control of the zone schools for an initial term of 5 years that expires on June 30th, 2024. Whereas the SBCSC and zone entered into mirror resolutions in August 2023 to extend the initial term of the 2019 agreement to June 30th, 2026. Whereas since extending the 2019 agreement in 2023, certain changes in Indiana law requiring the SBCSC to share operational funds with charter schools and the upcoming expiration of federal elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds have caused the SBCSC and zone to collaborate on cost-effective approaches to providing high-quality education to students within the SBCSC and zone schools. And whereas the SBCSC and zone now mutually wish to conclude the zone on July 16th, 2024. Now, therefore, be it resolved that after careful consideration and evaluation of the information before it, the School Board of Trustees and the South Bend Community School Corporation hereby states that and approves that effective July 17, 2024, SBCSC will assume managerial and oversight of zone schools, which will include school-based student services and transportation for both zone and SBCSC schools, and collaborating with all relevant departments to ensure a seamless transition to SBCSC administration pursuant to the Uniting South Bend Schools memo agreed upon by the zone and SBCSC and incorporated by reference herein. The zone and SBCSC further commits to continue considering and collaborating on appropriate next steps. This resolution, adopted the 16th day of July 2026 by at least majority vote of the entire SBCSC School Board of Trustees in a public meeting and the South Bend Empowerment Zone Incorporated Board of Directors in a public meeting. We're doing our side of this mutual resolution this evening. That was my admin at the end of that reading. So I'll entertain a motion related to said resolution.
Can I ask a point of order, whether the motion is appropriate first, or whether the
Discuss first.
discussion
Yep.
first, and then the motion consideration?
Absolutely. That's an excellent procedural question. Thank you. So I'll open up discussion and conversation around resolution now. And we'll do public comment and then we'll do a question. So I didn't speak into the mic. So Jeff is good at keeping track of me procedurally. And sometimes when I'm reading down here, my brain is thinking about reading and not thinking about the next thing I have to say. But that we will have a discussion period, we will have public comment period, and then we will have another board discussion motion period at the end of that. So I'll open up for discussion now from board members or comments, and or we could, if not, we could move into public comment first and then have the board have a conversation. I also wanted maybe to note, because I think I had my note here and I missed to read that. Leslie Wesley is on the call. I think we were getting on the right. So she wasn't able to unmute herself, but she is present. And I think we're working through those technical difficulties for her to join us during the meeting here shortly.
So just a couple of thoughts as we're considering this. One, couldn't be more proud of the work that's happened in the zone over the last couple of years. Some tremendous staff and faculty, teachers, students, parents, all committed to doing education different than what we've done before in these 5 schools. And we have, my experience walking through classrooms is that the culture has changed significantly, and that's a real credit to our leadership team and everybody in the classroom making that happen. I'm also think we've been very innovative. I think we set models and tried some things that other school corporations can test and try and such. And from my standpoint, I'm really excited about the progress we've made. At the same time, sensitive to the limitations that happen with public education, the dollars that are available. And we have squeezed about every dollar out of the budget we can over the last 5 years to try to do new and different and creative and innovative things. Things that I think will continue, whether the zone is in place or whether South Bend schools are in charge or not. I think South Bend would be hard pressed to roll back some of the things that we've done because they've been innovative and proven and work. And so, me personally, I don't know, me or any of us probably feel great about where we're at tonight having this conversation. At the same time, though, not sure what other paths are available. And you heard as we walked through our finance report, we have a significant deficit. At no fault of anybody's, it just is one of those where we've been the beneficiary of some outside funds that have helped us do the work through the last few years. And as those funds have dried up, we no longer have that. And so I think this board in particular, I'm just speaking for myself, but we were enthusiastic about extending the zone for a couple of years, not that long ago, but the realities of the budget have set in, and we're now having to make some very difficult decisions about people and personnel and schools and function and order and all those kind of things. And so just some thoughts out there, I guess. And I don't want to ramble on, but more want to say very proud of the good work that everybody's done to get us to where we're at today.
Chuck, other comments?
Thank you. I do also want to echo what my board colleague here has mentioned, in that it was a yeoman's task to be able to create something that was innovative and would have the impact that we were hoping to have, which is really to improve the educational outcomes of students. I mean, that's it, bottom line. And while the opportunity presented itself in April of 2019, and we were given at least up to 5 years to try to demonstrate some remarkable changes, we faced a great deal of challenges, and we tried to work through those challenges to create better outcomes for students. I too am proud of the work that the zone staff and leadership have done. It has had its transitions, just like what would occur in any school corporation or any school scenario. And I think what's important is that everyone in this room cares about students, and what we're trying to do is improve South Bend School Corporation's students, whether they be called zone or otherwise. They are all South Bend school students. And so that's what I hope to come out of this, is that all of the students will have the best opportunity and best resources available to them to improve their educational outcomes. So I do appreciate all the work that everyone's put in, and it's tough. This is a tough decision, and I know that I voted affirmatively to extend the opportunity for the zone, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I voted for that is because I really felt like the things that were being done differently in the zone would have the opportunity to take hold and improve the outcomes of students. And what I've learned in a very short period of time is that when you look at turnaround work, the time frame is actually 5 to 10 years to actually see results of true turnaround efforts. And I would just say, unfortunately, in my short tenure of 5 years, and then looking at the intervention that the state required of us, 5 years really is not long enough to do true turnaround work. We did, again, great work to make some recommendations and make differences for students in the zone, but they really are South Bend school students. So we made improvements in that area, and I'm happy that we were able to have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I would say there weren't many positive things, as we all know, that came out of COVID. one thing that we did see was significant funding for schools that enabled us to bring more resources, to provide better opportunities over the last, roughly 4 to 5 years. And that's what these schools needed in that period of time. And as the numbers showed, our improvement, while we had a lot of room to grow, we acknowledge where we started, but the rates we were improving were faster than some of our counterparts. And I think that's, again, because of the additional resources. And again, I won't go any further before crediting every single person that worked in this zone, from Dr. Lewis to our cabinet, most importantly, the teachers and the support. Wherever this vote goes tonight, I just want to make certain, I wanted to extend the thanks for the effort and the hard work. And again, acknowledge that, and it's a little bit why I wanted to clarify and make sure, when you look at the year we just ended, we had roughly $7 million plus of funding that came out of COVID. And those dollars are not available. We had some state grant money in there as well, and those dollars are not available. So at the end of the day, my observation is it causes a lot of difficult decisions, a lot of thoughts to try to get to the right outcome. There's no easy answer in any of this. I appreciate the efforts of our board here over the past years here that have volunteered time on this mission. And again, appreciate the staff and leadership. Can't say that enough in whatever direction this goes. And I'll reiterate, as Ms. Ball said, I do firmly believe that with continued leadership, we can implement some things across the greater corporation that have worked here, that have been positive, that have been good outcomes, and most importantly, that excite our students and excite our teachers and our leaders. And I think we can continue that mission forward. Regardless of how the structure looks, it's about the day-to-day passion, leadership, commitment that I know everybody brings that will live on regardless of what we end up happening tonight. Thank you.
Are there any of our online board members wish to share something before we move to public comment? You'll have a chance to also speak after public comment.
Sure.
If there's follow-up. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, this is Dwayne Wilson. Yes, I'd like to just share a couple comments. I think for all of the superlatives that were given is the very reason why I was excited to extend the time of the zone, the last discussion that we had. I spent a lot of my time, a good portion of time, both in Cook Willard and Harris, and saw actually with my own 2 eyes the great work that was happening there. I saw how things have changed, things have grown, students learning, and a lot of it has been because of the things that were implemented in the zone. And so I'm sad that this is where we are. However, at the same time, I also understand, for reasons that were also stated, some of the financial challenges, why this has to be. I get that. And so I will offer what my greatest hope is going forward is that we do a significant amount of detailed planning, a significant amount of detailed understanding what the needs of those students are, understanding what they're getting now, how do we bridge that gap. My hope is that whatever gains were made for the students that attended the zone schools will continue. My hope is that there will be very little disruption to their curriculum, to their transportation schedule, to their daily schedule, because all of those things have great impact on gains on students. So thank you. I understand where we are, and those are my hopes.
I would like to echo especially Ms. Ball's comments about turnaround schools. I think the public really needs to understand from day one the reason why we existed in the first place. I know just being with the zone board for starting in year 2, I think there was a lot of confusion of who we are, what we are, and why we even existed. Are we separate from South Bend Community Schools, etc.? So I think once we I hope we have established the reason why we existed, and that is the turnaround school concept, being able to do innovative things. And so I think in the years that we have been doing this, I think the public also should know that we've had changes in leadership with the chief and all the challenges that come from being a turnaround schools to begin with. So I have to echo the fact that I was enthusiastic about extending because of COVID and because of the change of leadership that we needed a little bit more time. However, we are where we are today. But even with that, I think my hope is that we understand the reason why we did this in the first place and all the good things and maybe even lessons learned, positive and negative, that it doesn't go away, that we need to continue on and learn and report out lessons learned from being a turnaround school. I am disappointed that the funding has the financial situation may be one of the main reasons that we might have to merge together, and that makes sense to me. In my brain, but turnaround concept is something that needs to be modeled, seen. I have walked through the hallways as a community member before and during just going through the South Bend schools, and you can see a huge culture change that doesn't happen overnight, that it isn't a policy that makes all the differences. It's really changing the hearts of people, the staff, the students that are affected. And so I truly believe there has been a culture change, and I hope as when the public makes comments, I hope you are also going to make those comments as well. I just want to share that the last thing I want to really share is I don't want that to disappear, that we continue on and find out what we did well and what we didn't do well, so that we will also rise from this and not do the same things over and over again that didn't work. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Other board comments before we move to public statements? Board will be able to make a statement afterwards. All right, seeing a break there, I will move into the portion of public comment for this. We will make some exceptions. Normally, I'm going to read the policy. There'll be a couple places here where I'll make exceptions to make it more broad. The board will hold public comment period before each vote and at the end of the meeting. It is requested that public focus comments on the topic of the vote. It is requested that public comment on all other topics be made at the end of the meeting. Individuals must sign up online or in person earlier in the meeting. We'll make exceptions. People who are here, we will allow you to speak tonight, and we ask you to share your comments. Individuals must make their comments in person at the board meeting. Individuals are invited to address the board for 3 minutes. Individuals may only speak once during a public comment period. Speakers shall properly identify themselves after they approach the podium by stating their name and address for the record. We will require that. Personnel issues are not to be addressed during open sessions. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a person's statement if the statement becomes personally directed, abusive, or obscene. So at this, my timer just went away. At this moment, I will open it up for public comment. I think we are doing so at the podium here. You can grab a seat, or however you would like to approach and do that. You are welcome. I will try to watch time. I'll try to give you a countdown when you've got a minute or 30 seconds left. First up, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sue Ekman, and I'm just basically a concerned taxpayer. My question, I have other questions, but before the discussion ensues, if I understood news reports yesterday, both the South Bend School Corp and the Empowerment Boards had to both agree on what you're going to vote on tonight. If you're voting on it tonight, when or if is this, and I don't know if you can answer that question, is the regular school board voting whether it's going to mesh together again?
So during public comment, the public is invited to make a comment. It's not a question and answer period
I
back and forth.
understand that, but I just didn't know if that's something before a discussion starts going on. If we know when the other half is taking care of their business.
Yeah, so what I'll try to do is tabulate questions and answer them at the end.
Okay,
That's fine, and I will make sure I'm going back up.
Okay.
Going back on that detail.
and that was, I just wanted to make that before a discussion started.
That's
Thank
great. No, thank you. Yeah, so that's a good, normally, so public comment portion is for someone to make a statement. If you do have a question as your statement, that is fine. That is why we do have a discussion period after, which is why the questions are good, because then the board can think about that and answer back, but we will try to answer. The ones that we are able to answer, we will answer, or at least give some clarifying information. Other public comment? We have a larger turnout than normal, so I assume there was going to be more comments. So I don't want to rush the process for sure.
I think people are not sure when they can talk, what time they can talk.
So you're able to, if you want to make a comment about the resolution that I just read about concluding the South Bend Empowerment Zone, and I will say it, I will read the brief part of it, that SBCSC will assume management and oversight of zone schools. And then I listed a few things. So that is what the board is about to vote on. If you want to make a comment about that, you could do so now. And we ask that comments now are about that. If you want to make other comments about school things in general, we will have a public comment portion at the end of our meeting where people could, I don't want to say even say anything, but topically about other things not related to this. But if you're hoping to influence the board's discussion and influence a decision that we're about to make, now would be the time to do that. Yeah, and I don't want to be procedurally onerous either. So we're trying to be flexible, right, to make sure we're trying to allow voice here. So.
Hi. I am Christina Lynn Kreider. My address is 1001 Canterbury Drive, South Bend, Indiana 46628. I have been a public educator here in South Bend Community School Corporation. This will be my 27th year. The last 2 years. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a product of South Bend Schools as well. Let me say the last 2 years I have been here at Harrison in the zone. I left South Bend Schools on my own, willingly, to come here and do what I could do in the empowerment zone. We have so many questions as teachers. This was sparred in the news. We saw it on Facebook. Why are we finding things out on Facebook? I have to pay my mortgage. I have to pay my car payment. I have to pay my foot surgery. So will I have a job in 3 weeks? Will I have the job I left in June in 3 weeks, 4 weeks when we start school? Will I have that job that I agreed to do? Will Todd Cummings show his face? Will he say what we're doing here at Harrison is commensurate with what we're doing in South Bend schools, if not better? We know it is. So we just have lots of questions. That's why I think people don't know what to say, because we are clueless. We were blindsided on Facebook last night. So I don't know if people behind me we have questions, we don't have comments. All the comments are gonna sound like what I'm saying. But thank you for hearing us. Thank you for being willing to have us here. It sounds like maybe things were already decided before we walked in, which is how things are usually done. But we in our hearts, read my shirt. Read my shirt. The future is in my classroom. Thank you.
Will I have a job? Pretty sad. My name is Teresa Crittenden, 6728 Home Grand Drive, South Bend, Indiana. I want to say that I do hope that you vote for us to become one with South Bend again, because I feel like the past few years has not been productive. I have worked in the corporation over 30 years, and I feel like, this past few years with the zone has been very frustrating, disappointing, disheartening for many teachers and staff. I've spoke with many, so I feel like I can say that comfortably. I've spoken with several of you, so you know my feelings with this school corporation and the zone. I have worked tirelessly supporting the zone. I have bent over backwards trying to follow the lead, implement new curriculums, and so forth. A lot of what us teachers needed, what the staff needed, seemed to fall often on deaf ears. So we're upset, we're disappointed, we're frustrated. We need answers. And again, I'm not against going back to the corporation. I feel like that's the best choice. But I also think that there needs to be some accountability of where this started to fall apart. It is not on our kids, it's not on our families, it's not on our teachers. It's money. And it seems that there were a lot of poor choices made. We have a very large administration. We have a lot of curriculum supplies that sit around. That's very frustrating to us, unnecessary. So I hope that with this transition that is probably going to happen, right? That you are transparent. It's safe for everyone, it's quick, people are notified. My phone was ringing off the hook starting about 8 o'clock yesterday morning. So,
About a minute left.
okay, thank you. So we knew something was going on, right? So it's just disappointing. If we would have had the heads up like, hey, something's coming up, rather than vote for this to go on for 2 more years and kind of, I feel misled, as I'm sure many of my fellow teachers feel misled as well. Just disappointing, real disappointing. And I hope that when we go back to the corporation, we, feel a little bit more positivity after what we're now going through. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deb Nelson.
Name and address, please.
My name is
Address.
Deb Nelson. I live on 2520 Latham.
Thank you.
I just came up to just say a few comments about the zone. I came on, this will be my 3rd year, and I think that even though we have some people who feel as though the zone has been whatever, I honestly feel as though the zone has done a lot of good work. And like she was stating, like the turnaround work, it's work. So it's not something that can be done overnight. But I personally have seen a change in my own classroom, teaching in the zone and teaching in one of the labeled toughest schools in South Bend, But I will say that just to hear that the zone could be whatever dissolved or will be going and merging back with South Bend schools, it does leave me with just a bunch of what is going to happen. I don't know necessarily how to feel. What is the curriculum going to look like? Are we just completely going to change it on our teachers and on our children, and we have a little less than a month to start school? And so those are the types of things that I'm a little concerned about, because it all boils down to the children. And are they being taught efficiently? Are they being taught what they need? And so the zone, I know we've changed a few times our curriculum for the better to make sure that we are giving our students exactly what they need, from going from wit and wisdom to EL education, which I absolutely love and adore. And we need answers, and I wish that we would have had this discussion maybe around the time when we were talking about extending the zone. I mean, I know somebody's looking at the money at all times, so I'm sure this wasn't just out of nowhere, like, oh, now we don't have them.
You're at a minute left.
So I'm just, as a teacher, I'm a little angry. And just as a former South Bend kid, like our student, I want the best for our students. And I don't necessarily know, because I really don't know what all of this is entailing. I don't know if this is what's best for our kids. So I hope that you guys can make it more clear what are the steps we're going to be doing moving forward.
30 seconds.
And, that's really all I have to say.
My name is Shane Williams Inez, 4000 Greatmore Avenue, 46637. I joined the South Bend School Corporation in 2019 when we had a massive transformation in the administration in the central office, new superintendent, new cabinet members, and which was also the beginning of the South Bend Empowerment Zone situation. I actually grew up about 2 or 3 blocks away from the school on the west side, on the lakeside, and my parents refused to send me to any school on the west side, Harrison, Navarre, Washington, because of the perception of the corporation as well as the problematic affairs, so to speak. As someone who worked directly with the superintendent of South Bend Schools, with many of the board members one-on-one, and an executive assistant to our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Fowler, I want to, one, if this means anything, to maybe champion the frustrations that some of the administrators here and the teachers feel. But I also do want to make a positive plea to the Empowerment Zone and to the School Corporation Board, Ms. Ball, Mrs. Wesley, and the Treasurer, Ms. Fowler, that having worked in the intricacies of this corporation, it is a lot. It is so much. Having worked with Dr. Lewis, and Dr. Camacho, I know you all have both come in and tried to do your very best. And I want to say thank you for changing the perception of schools on the west side, if anything. I do also want to mention that our school corporation has roughly 3,000 employees. And so as such a people-based corporation, as such a heavily people-based corporation, I want to just make a public comment to say, whatever happens, whichever way the vote goes, that at the end of the day, when this is over, one, you do not stop trying to be as innovative as possible here at Midland with our students. But then secondly, that you do find the time and the resources to take care of the people that work here, to take care of the people that have put their blood, sweat, and tears into the future of our community, and that's our kids. So although things like this are so tough, decisions are so tough like this to make, and the work that comes behind it is such a heavy lift. It is burnout work, day in and day out, to work for this corporation. But again, I just want to make a positive plea. Thank you for changing the perception of schools on the west side. When I have children, I would be happy to send them to schools on the west side. But I also want to make sure, whoever's listening, that you take care of the people that have put in the blood, sweat, and tears for this corporation, for this board, and for our students. Thank you.
Good evening. Kathleen Anastas, 51680 Orange Road. So I too heard yesterday about this zone situation. And my question to board members who are not here, which is Ms. Fowler, Ms. Wesley is on remote, but my question to Ms. Fowler is, will South Bend be able to take these kids, take all that comes with this, all their buildings that are zone buildings, and be able to afford it? Because the way things are at the school board meetings, things are not pleasant. And we understand that it's important, education is important, children are important, staff is important. Rushing decisions is not important. That is the worst thing you can do. Rushing a decision. I'm sorry to say, but the other board has rushed, in my opinion, has rushed many a decision that did not need to be rushed. So I don't know, because I couldn't see the financial documents, I could not find your agenda anywhere for this meeting ahead of time. But I would urge you to really think about whether or not your students that you've worked so hard to get to this spot is going to be carried through with Dr. Cummings and his group. And if everything is going to transition and they're going to be better off, or they're going to be the same as they are where they are now. Because you've worked really hard to get to this spot. And your children have worked really hard to get to these spots. And it would be a shame to them to let them down and let them suffer.
Less than 30 seconds.
So I encourage you to really think seriously before you make these decisions. And do not rush. Thank you.
Let some awkward silence sit for another minute. Okay, so we will move back to the board portion then and close public comment now. And what we will do from a response perspective is Davion has requested to be able to answer and address some of the concerns, so we will do that. And then have board members then be able to respond as well to that or make final comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone who are with us in person and virtually. Normally, it's certainly, this is a board meeting and it's not my role to speak, and I try not to speak too much. But the questions require a response, and so I will provide responses. I'll start off by saying, as the zone chief, ultimately the buck stops with me, and so I'm responsible. And so clearly, us getting here today is a poor reflection on me, and I certainly want to apologize to each of you for that. And certainly us being where we are right now, where we're speaking about this for the first time today, also is certainly a failure on my part. And so again, I do want to apologize to each of you for that. I will try my best to be as transparent as possible without saying anything that I'm not supposed to say that would cause other challenges. As Ms. Ross shared in the financials, we were projecting a 23% decrease in our budget from the current year to the upcoming year, so about $7.5 million. We first came to that realization in approximately April as we were planning for the budget. At the May board meeting, I presented a budget at the May board meeting, which I think occurred at Warren Elementary School. And in that meeting, I shared that if we needed to move forward with having 23% less of our budget, that we would need to make a lot of drastic changes. And so anyone who attended that meeting or saw it online would have heard me talking about looking at a different transportation option. You would have heard me, or you would recall me talking about eliminating tutoring programs, eliminating a variety of programs, including personnel. And those are not easy decisions. So earlier, Ms. Ross shared, for example, we had a reduction in force of about 35 people. Those are 35 people who all have bills and families, et cetera, and those are not easy decisions. I say that to say, prior to us getting here, I made every single possible decision that I could to try to get us to a balanced budget so that we could operate. That being said, as discussed by everyone here today, a part of us being an empowerment zone is that we get to innovate and we get to do a lot of different things and a lot of new things. But at the rate we were cutting, and again, for those of you who've been following along since that budget presentation in May, changing transportation would mean that we could no longer do weekly PD on Thursdays. Eliminating staff positions meant less support for students, less interventions, et cetera. So all of the cuts along the way, I mean, we even increased classroom sizes, which was a hard decision as well. That was something that our teachers really enjoyed, having smaller classroom sizes. So I say that to say, along the way, we explored every single possible decision to try to get us to a balanced budget. And when we got to where we were, there was still a gap. And on top of there still being a financial gap, the empowerment zone would no longer look like an empowerment zone. So we had cut to the point where all of our innovations, again, I got rid of tutoring, I got rid of everything trying to make this work. And if we had made other cuts, which we still needed to have made, then we would have gotten to a point where we would be potentially doing harm to students. And so I'm not in the business of doing harm to students. And so we started to look at various options. As I shared in in May at the State of the Zone presentation to the corporation, for anyone that watched, I did talk about that we, both sides need to collaborate better and share resources. Every single school district in the country is dealing with the loss of ESSER dollars. And every single school district in the country is having to make difficult decisions. I'm seeing districts out there that are not offering transportation to kids anymore. I'm seeing districts out there that's, again, moving classroom sizes to 35 students or 40 students, right? Like, not necessarily what's best for kids. But I would remind you all that I did talk about these things and have been talking about some of these things. And so where we landed was that in the best interest of all students, because just as how we are dealing with the loss of ESSER dollars, so too is the corporation, in the best interest of all 14,000 students, because these are all of our students, that we really needed to look very hard at merging our resources so that we could be more efficient and cut costs where possible. And that is the impetus to us getting here. I say that to say this decision, or us getting here to even consider this decision, did not come lightly. We explored every single option. We reached out to the state. We looked at all the options. I just want to assure you all that we just didn't wake up one morning and said, we're gonna do this. And in being more efficient, someone talked about our administrators, things of that nature. We've made further cuts so that we can continue to be efficient. With that being said, some of the questions being asked as a part of if this resolution were to pass this evening, the corporation will act on that resolution at its next board meeting, which I believe is the 22nd. And so we will pass it on our side, and then we will send it to them. They will have to act on it as well. They could pass it, they could not pass it. They pass it, both sides agree, and then the matter is resolved. If they choose not to pass it, then that would lead to further conversation. But I believe they will take action on it at their next meeting, which is July 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Ball, July 22nd, which is next Monday. Now, assuming that both sides pass the resolution, there are a number of things that were agreed upon as a part of this process, including that there would be no leadership changes at the building level. So all of our principals, all of our assistant principals, deans, administrators, would be no changes for the 24-25 school year. Beyond that, that will be a decision for the superintendent at that point. In terms of teaching level positions, we have made all the cuts that can be made in order to best serve students. So while I cannot 100% guarantee, nor would I say that there will be no more personnel changes, there are various vacancies across the wider South Bend schools. And so even the 35 individuals that we did a reduction in force for, all of them that were certified got placed in another building. And there's still vacancies. So if you're a teacher right now, all you have to do is to look to see that there is a vacancy. And if you are a certified licensed teacher, to the credit of your wonderful NEA, you have protections. And so you will be placed. It might not be at the placement of your choice, but you will be placed. So at this point in time, I don't have any concern around folks' jobs as we move into the new school year, right? Now, other concerns around curriculum and things of that nature, legitimate concerns. But again, given that we are 4 weeks out, as I have had numerous conversations with the superintendent, there should be no big changes. So there's not going to be at this time, suddenly we're no longer doing EL education or anything like that. As various board members have talked about and has been agreed upon by the superintendent and his team, we want this transition to be as least disruptive for students as possible, right? And so obviously teachers contractually return, I believe, on August 14th. There is no possible way, humanly possible, that we could have teachers come in on the 14th of August, students come in on the 16th, and we introduce new curriculum. It's not going to happen, right? So again, I understand that this is a surprise to you all. This may appear to be last minute, and again, I will take full sole responsibility and do humbly apologize, but we have worked very diligently to put guardrails in place to make sure that this will be a smooth transition. And so the only thing that will change starting tomorrow, assuming that the vote is affirmative, is that the management and the oversight of the schools will move from me to Dr. Cummings and his team. That is the only thing that should be a major change. There is one other open item around transportation, and I expect us to have a resolution to that by the end of this week. We will either continue with our current transportation provider, or we will return transportation to the corporation, again, which is something that I've been discussing publicly since the May board meeting. So again, not much new to share there. So there should not be any major disruptions to you all as teachers or to our families. Uniforms will remain. The question of bell schedule will be dependent on transportation, as I've talked about since May. Curriculum, all of these other things will remain. Other things that I've already previously cut in trying to get us to a balanced budget, such as tutoring, et cetera, those things will remain as those were already planned for the upcoming school year. But folks, it will be business as usual. We have 4 weeks out before students show up, and they're all counting on us to be ready to go, to welcome them and greet them with big smiles and open arms. And that's what we're gonna do despite this transition. The only thing that's changing is, again, the control of the schools are moving from me to Dr. Cummings. And he and I have had numerous conversations around how to make sure that this is a seamless, non-disruptive transition for students and families and for faculty and staff. And I suspect that it will meet that. So again, I understand that this is challenging, I understand that this is a surprise, but in the last 2 years that I've been here, I think, especially to the teachers in the room and the administrators as well, I think you guys are used to me throwing things at you last minute at this point in time, right? And time again, you've, rose to the occasion and you've handled it successfully. This is not ideal, I understand that. It would have been awesome if we could have been having this discussion months ago. We tried and exhausted all possible options, and the timing is just the timing. So it was not intentional, but ultimately the buck stops with me. I'm responsible. I failed you in this regard, and I sincerely apologize. What we can do is to move forward and work together and make sure that we're ready for the new school year. And I believe that's what we'll do, and I believe we'll do it well. So I hope I've addressed the major concerns, which is around employment and big changes that would be disruptive to you all at the start of the school year. There should not be any. We put guardrails in place, all right? And so I think I've addressed the various concerns that are out there, but many of you know how to reach me. You have my cell phone number, you know to email me. I will stay behind at the end of the meeting. Assuming that the vote is affirmative, I will answer as many questions as possible in details. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll turn it back over to the board for comment. I do want to at least clarify one thing. I think despite the timing of all of this isn't anybody individual's fault, and clearly not solely on Dr. Lewis or on Dr. Lewis at all. We've all worked really hard to try to make sure we could come up with the best resolution possible here, regardless of the timings. I want you to know that, and I want everybody else to hear that, at least for me as the board chair, and I'll take blame where it's due as well in how we've communicated. I know one comment I'll make around communication and some of the things that had come out, right, is that we feel bad that I think people thought the schools were not going to open this fall or something, and the zone was, right? So I think there were some things like that that I think some people got carried away with that we knew was not going to be the case, but I understand that it was a challenge for people. So are there other board member comments, either, and maybe this time we can start online, if that's all right. So let's go, if there's online folks, I'll ad lib for a second, so you've got a minute. If you decide that you want to make another comment or not, please let me know. And then we will come back to board members here for comments, and then we'll entertain a motion regarding the resolution that is on the table.
Sam?
Yes.
This is Corinna.
Yep.
Here.
Go ahead.
So just wanted to thank all the board members for their work on this and their service, as well as Dr. Lewis and his team. This has been very difficult. And as one of my colleagues said here before, this isn't unique to South Bend schools. And we're facing some of the same similar challenges on our side. And we are committed to doing everything that we possibly can to ensure that this is a smooth transition for both sides. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kramer. I know online folks already made some comments, so then I'll come back to you if you raise your hand or want to speak, but I'll start then back in the room here.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something for Godwin. So just listening to the public comments, I was really moved. As even Dr. Lewis has explained, I want to just say, I'm sure publicly and behind the scenes, I just want to say Dr. Lewis has absolutely advocated to make sure things were in place, especially for his staff. So I want to commend that and publicly just state that he has definitely advocated for this. In the comment, one of the comments was the word rushed decision. Just like Dr. Lewis had stated, sometimes the writing is on the wall, right? You know how much money is coming in and what we need to cut, etc. So this decision definitely, we knew at some point we are merging back into South Bend Community Schools. That was the plan from day one. So as we're doing this a little bit earlier, I do personally feel like there's no other option. So this is just me as a board member just feeling this personally. I feel like I don't have any other choice left. We have taken a look at every different avenues. So it is not a rushed decision. Just feel like I don't have any other options kind of feeling. So I just want to say to my colleagues and especially to Dr. Lewis, he has definitely worked very, very, very hard to make sure that all this would work for the community, the staff especially, and for the families. So I don't want to leave this meeting feeling like this was something that just happened. I understand the surprise, but in some ways we all got this information too. Although we knew it was coming, but not this suddenly. So I just wanted to state that. So thank you so much.
Next board member comment. Just a quick comment. Again, thank you for everybody for some great comments tonight. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, for bringing some great clarity to that. And this has been a long and painstaking process as we go through. Rosa kind of hit on it a little bit. The budget presents unique challenges that don't leave us too many options other than combining some resources and working to find some efficiencies that help us do what we do. But I also want folks in the room, and I think it's really the sentiment of the board has been to not give up and throw all this good work away. And I have great confidence in Ms. Ball and Ms. Wesley and Ms. Fowler and the entire team at the South Bend Community School Corporation that they too, like we do, care very much about kids and the outcomes here. And I think what I've found with all of them is they're good listeners and they want to hear about the things that have been successful and that we've modeled here. So I encourage folks to not feel like, depending on the vote goes tonight, that it's all done and we can all just go home and go back to our lives and our business, because we've made good progress that I want to make sure that we continue to build on. We're not done with our work. Ms. Ball talked about, this work takes a long time. We're certainly not where we wanted to be in terms of number of years, but we hope we've planted some terrific seeds that we now need to continue to fertilize and water and watch them grow over the next couple of years. And so we should all be proud of that. But it's going to be critical that we be advocates, right? I think for a long time people thought these were forgotten schools on the west side, and we all rolled up our sleeves and said, these aren't going to be forgotten schools. We're going to do what we can to change educational outcomes here, and we've done that. And it's important that our voices not be silent now and to continue to work together to try to continue to build on what we've done here.
Yeah, I would just like to say I appreciate everyone's comments. We are listening, and we understand the frustration. I would just I would just say that, like anything in life, it's how we respond, right? There are a lot of things that sometimes don't go the way any of us would like, myself included. I would just hope that, we go forward positively, continue to ask tough questions. That's absolutely needs to be done, but not in a divisive way. God knows this country's divisive enough, right? Let's try to work together. Assuming this merger comes back together, it's for the better of the kids and the community as a whole. I've lived here my entire life as well. Somebody else commented. That's why I joined this board, to try to help. And if we just tear this down going forward and tear each other apart, I'll be sad. I hope it doesn't come to that. Again, be present, be vigilant, ask the tough questions, but do it in a positive way, working together. And I think we can continue to benefit from the gains that have been made these last 4 to 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just some notes that I made on some of the comments that the public provided. I'm hopeful that, since I do serve on both boards, that we're able to, with this transition that may take place, or most likely will take place, that we are ensured that we have a plan in writing that's shared as soon as possible with parents and staff. Somebody made mention about notes or not being able to get the agenda and details for tonight's meeting. I know that the zone does have a website, and usually documents are there, and our apologies if there was an oversight in getting that there, but I would like and this is probably a transition item anyway, but all those documentations, all the board meetings and minutes should eventually become available both on the zone site for as long as that's up, but also on the corporation side as well, just make it easy so that people can go to either site for some period of time to get all that information. I think what's definitely important is to come away with some kind of frequently asked questions and get that information out like ASAP. I know that on the corporation side, there are some family meetings that are coming, and I apologize that I don't have them at the top of my head, but I think they're at the end of the month, but you can go to the website, and certainly, this is a big decision tonight, so anything that we vote up tonight and or next Monday, all of that stuff has got to get communicated to families and staff immediately. I also wanted to share that I appreciate, Dr. Lewis, your transparency. The way that you deliver information to both your staff and the community, I think needs to be applauded. It's excellent in my opinion. We all have different styles, and all styles have their pros and cons. Some might say that it's too much information, too transparent, but I think that right leadership in the right place is important. And just speaking from my standpoint, I'm hopeful that during this transition that I know that there's, I'm hopeful that Dr. Lewis and others that are in the administrative section or portion of the zone would be welcomed and excited about transitioning to the South Bend School Corporation if they feel that there's an opportunity there for them to thrive both in their profession and to help students. So while I know that everybody may not want to come over, I'm hopeful that people will want to come over and be excited about working with students, because that's what all of us are in this room doing, is we're working with students. A lot of times it just seems like adults are the problem. We get in our own way, but we have to work through what we have to work through to get to working and helping students. It's definitely going to be paramount that all staff are discussed and talked to you about the transition, because I certainly you can feel the frustration in the room. I'm a person personally who's gone through a lot of transitions, a lot of pivots, and life keeps happening. And like some of the young people say, life be lifing, and life is definitely lifing. Our pivot is very quick. but we can do it. We pivoted so quickly during COVID, and not that we want to keep mimicking quick changes, but I know we have it in us to do it. All the adults, all professionals in the room, we can do this work. It can happen. But I think it's very important that we make sure we have to be adamant that, and I did see someone from South Bend School Corporate Administration walk in the room, but it's going to be paramount that all of our teachers, certified, non-certified, and staff are communicated with, like ASAP, about what these transitions might mean. So those are kind of like some of the takeaways. I wrote down more, but those are some of the things that definitely have to take place in order for this to be as smooth and transparent as possible.
Other comments? I was saving just a couple things that I wanted to share before we move to a vote. And reflecting on all your comments, thank you to everybody who came and shared tonight. So nothing's perfect. I was actually thinking about that earlier today, right? And there's the thought around that, like when someone sees an ideally perfect AI generated face, it's weird, right? Because the perfectness of it actually bothers you, right? So we're beautiful in our imperfection. And so nothing that we did here in the zone was perfect, right? Everybody's gonna have different opinions and thoughts around whether that worked or this worked, or we were really successful because of that, or that's the right shade of blue or not. And so we're all gonna have things that we're gonna agree upon and disagree upon, and that's part of opinion. I think we've all tried to decide on the matter of fact that we're trying to figure out what we can do that's best serves our children. And whenever there's 4 people in a room to think about what's best for children, there's gonna be 9 opinions. And we've all worked really hard to try to parse through that as best we can as imperfect people, right? So as fantastic as Dr. Lewis has been as our zone chief, not everything he's done has been perfect. And one of the things I think he has done the best with us is be transparent about the things that we've tried, the things that we've wanted to do, and how hard we've worked. And so the only thing I think we can ever not complain about people is how hard they work, right? And I think we've all worked hard. We've all tried to be transparent and honest about what's going on and trying to be focused on the children that we're trying to serve and the communities that we're trying to improve. So I wanted to be clear on that in terms of thanking everybody for your comments, versus whether you were agreeing that the zone should stay forever, or if you were glad that we were not. I think we all agree that we're not happy with the timeline, whether it was 4 weeks to close or 4 months to close, or in 2 years from now when we thought about it. Either way, there were going to be people at that finish line who are going to be unhappy about what was happening. And so we weighed that as well as we thought about what's best for our kids, right? What's best for our students in our schools, what's best for our families, and trying to reduce distraction and trying to keep our school year opening as seamless as possible, right, this school year. I joined this board because we wanted to prove to people that the kids in our schools could. And every teacher in this room, my mom was a middle school Spanish and English teacher, every teacher in this room knows that every kid can, right? Regardless of where they are, what neighborhood they're from, what language they speak, if they can hear or not, or what their other capacities are, every kid can. And we showed that, and I'm proud of that as a board member of the Empowerment Zone. And that wasn't gonna change whether we ended in 4 weeks or 4 years. So I want to thank everybody for the comments tonight again. I want to thank Dr. Lewis and all of our team members who worked hard in the zone, and know that regardless of the motion and vote that happens this evening, it is not about your individual outcomes, but it is about the fact that we know our kids can, and we hope and we believe that this vote allows more kids to continue to can. So with that, I will entertain a motion around our resolution or additional discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as was presented earlier.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Paul.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Is there any additional discussion, comments before vote? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, and we will not, we do not have a motion plan regarding this, but it was on the agenda here, was talking about the Empowerment Zone MOU. So to share some timelines post this vote, which we've already shared a little bit. So the South Bend School Corporation will take up their version of this resolution at their subsequent meeting. After that, the South Bend Empowerment Zone, which will still exist, will meet to talk about the final amendments and closure of our MOU, and then subsequently will move forward with the dissolution of the solution of our 501c3 nonprofit that was created to manage the Empowerment Zone. We will move expeditiously and through a process, a legal process to do that and handle accounts and all of those details. Happy to answer questions about that if people have that. But that will, so we've had that on our agenda here as that's something that will move to our next meeting as a future agenda item. That closes the business items for the Empowerment Zone Board meeting. It does bring us to our next public comment portion. And so I will read our public comment policy again. The board will hold a public comment period before each vote and at the end of the meeting. It is requested that the public focus comments on the topic of the vote. It is requested that the public comment on all other topics be made at the end of the meeting. Individuals must sign up either online by 12 p.m. on the meeting date or in person no later than 10 minutes after the call to order. Individuals must make their comments in person at the board meeting. Individuals are invited to address the board for 3 minutes. Individuals may only speak once during a public comment period. Speakers shall properly identify themselves after they approach the podium by stating their name and address for the record. Personnel issues are not to be addressed during open sessions. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a person's statement if the statement becomes personally directed, abusive, or obscene. So I will now entertain public comment.
Hi, my name is Colleen Mercy. I live at 52646 Highland Drive, South Indiana, 46635. Hello. I just wanted to share that I've been a part of the South Bend Schools for many years. I at one point did move over to the Empowerment Zone, and I want everyone here to know, and the teachers here that are already here probably already know this. I went there for some exciting, new, and creative, and innovative experiences. And to hopefully be able to provide more for students than just what was in the classroom. I'm very grateful and was very proud of the work I did with the Empowerment Zone. It's sad to see this option removed at this time, though we all knew eventually this was going to be an outcome for South Bend schools to retake their schools. Just a comment to Dr. Lewis maybe more specifically, and I think he'll know what I mean. It is hard to land a plane when you didn't build it, and sometimes the control tower is on coffee break, and someone didn't have the runway built ahead of time. So that'll be my ending statement, but I loved the time I spent in the zone until the point where I was no longer a part of the zone. But for that good part, I thank you. And good luck.
I'll let awkward silence go for another minute. All right, 30 seconds then. I will close the public comment portion here and open it up for board communication, in which board members can make another comment or statement before we adjourn.
I want to thank all the board members who've served with me on the zone thus far. I came in like many, well, there's some who've been on, I think, the zone board since its inception. I came in about January or February of 2020, right before the leadership change. And I'll just say this, it's like ducks on the water, they look like it's moving very smoothly, very calmly. And underneath, the paddles are going, the feet are going, they're going. And that's this board's work. We're always going, and the public meetings are just a fraction of the work and the energy and the bandwidth that we put in. There's still more work to go, but I appreciate all the feedback, the comments, the board retreats, the executive sessions, the closed sessions, the emails. I mean, we were definitely a very different group. And I can speak for myself, it's hard to be on two different boards and kind of come in it in two different ways, but this board is very unique and very diverse, and I appreciate the work that all of you all put in, and I hope that you will continue to support South Bend Schools. I know that you will, but there are definitely committee works, public meetings, you can come blast us out at South Bend School Board meetings, maybe not blast us out, share your ideas, thoughts, and concerns. But some folks are not here, and they're virtually, but I definitely want to thank you for listening to me in closed session, listening to me in public meetings, and I appreciate everything, all the perspectives that everybody has. Everybody's very different, very different. So I thank you all for that.
Other board communication? All right, seeing none, we'll roll on, making sure that we'll get our next board meeting. I don't have that date in front of me, but I know we've got that set on the calendar, so we'll continue to manage the next agenda items that we have coming our way. So thank you, board members, for the time, diligence this evening. Thank you to everybody for attending this evening. I will hang around and happy to have conversations and chat with folks as needed this evening. I know several of us will. Dr. Lewis has also offered the same. I want to also publicly again thank Dr. Lewis for his hard work and sacrifice during this process. And with that, I will adjourn us at 7:35 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.